It has been more than 5 years since my wife of 15 years, Adelia Lynn Masters, a local Bank of America branch manager, asked me for a divorce. Her simple explanation was, "I don't love you anymore." She claimed that she had no one else. Adelia said that over time we simply grew apart. I had my doubts, but I could never prove anything. I heard her whisper on the phone about big changes in her life shortly after that night. We agreed to joint custody of our daughters, who were 14 and 12 years old at the time. In private consultations with professionals, both girls decided to live with her. I was remembering all this because of an article in USA Today that I signed up to receive this Thursday morning. It was an article about Regional Vice President Adelia Lynn Peterson and her husband, Senior Vice President Ronald Peterson, attending a charity event in New York City. Another photo showed their daughters, 19-year-old Amanda and 17-year-old Miranda Peterson, dressed to the nines and described as promising young ladies. It was definitely Adelia. She now had the status and prestige she had always wanted. The article said that she was very popular on social networks. Her current husband was once my casual friend. We all met shortly after Adelia started working with him at the local Bank of America branch. Their daughters were mine, but now live with a different last name. My first thought was to call my trusted assistant Helen Beard into my office to confirm that my eyes were seeing what I thought. If my vision was correct, it would explain why the search for them all was fruitless. Helen was also my wife's distant cousin, but she was on vacation that day for personal reasons. On the day our divorce was supposed to be finalized, my wife Adelia did not show up. I asked my lawyer to find out why before moving forward without her. The judge ordered both of us to be present so that we could confirm to him that the documents presented to the court were approved by both of us. Her lawyer acknowledged that she had been transferred to another state. My lawyer asked me if I gave my wife permission to take the children out of state. I answered in the negative. That's when my nightmare began. Judge Donald McDonald's attitude changed in an instant. When the judge learned this fact, he asked me to go out and try to call them on my cell phone. I left the courtroom and tried it. I found out that the numbers I had were no longer in service. I checked their Facebook pages and found that I had been unfriended and blocked. I returned to the courtroom and told my lawyer everything I had learned. He took it to the judge. The judge immediately issued a warrant for my wife's arrest on charges of child abduction. He suspended the divorce proceedings until she appeared in person in his court. Her lawyer was furious and tried to appeal to the judge's common sense. In an attempt to get him to reconsider his decision, the lawyer implied that it was not such a big deal. In the end, Mr. Boy's Masters can confirm that they have reached an agreement. The judge replied, "Yes, he can. He just confirmed that he did not consent to the children being taken out of state." The lawyer replied that this might not be true, that he might be lying. "That's right. That's why she should be here," the judge clarified. He added to his order, "with both their daughters." The police later told me during the investigation that her family claimed that she told them a lot of nasty things about me, and they fell for it. Employees at a local Bank of America branch readily confirmed these claims. When the police asked for evidence, no one could provide it. It was just Adelia's words. They simply accepted it as the truth because they knew Adelia well enough. "Why does it matter? He's just a man," was the answer when they privately questioned the ladies of our extended family. Even social services who interviewed the children said they knew nothing about this new allegation, as it was never brought up by any of the girls. Their interviews with them revealed nothing that would suggest such an idea. However, rumors spread by word of mouth throughout our city thanks to members of Adelia's extended family. Over the past 5 years, Judge and I stayed in touch, and as a result, we developed a friendship because we both loved fly fishing. He wasn't surprised that I came over to his house that night after dinner. "There's a reason I brought the newspaper with me. You need to see this," I said seriously. Then I opened the newspaper to the article and let him see for himself. "Son of a bitch," the judge said. "Ruth, can you hand me my cell phone? John, I need a few minutes, please." Donald, in the photo below the article, are my 2 daughters. The judge's face turned white. "Jesus Christ, They've been hiding in plain sight this whole time. I walked out onto their patio and sat down. Ruth joined me, bringing us both beers. He's furious. I've never seen him so angry. He's calling the FBI. What did you show him? Asked Ruth. A photograph from today's newspaper of my missing wife and her new husband. This is the first hint that she is still alive in the last 5 years, I replied. The second photo on the page is of my daughters with new last names. Damn right, that's it. So he called the FBI because interstate running away with a child abduction charge is a federal crime, Ruth said. Why didn't Bank of America help you find her? They got a judgment from a federal appeals court that allowed them to disobey your husband's court order, arguing that it was a family matter and they didn't have to comply, I said. Tell the judge that I went home because my emotions were overwhelming me, I said. Tell him he can call me at my office in the morning. It was a long and difficult night for me. Was there more to their relationship than just friendship? We were already married when she got a job in the financial loans department, which he headed. I was just starting my consulting firm. The question of whether my daughters were really his or mine was now especially acute. Did any of us know the real truth? I told myself to take my time because Amanda was already born when Adelia joined the bank. The next morning, my thoughts turned to Helen. How will she take all this? Over the past 5 years, her hatred for her cousin had only grown. I knew that she believed me. Her actions over the years proved this to the fullest. Many times I wanted to take her into my arms and tell her my feelings, but I didn't. She deserved the best a man could give. With me and what I was facing, it was impossible. To me, Helen was a beautiful woman. Her brown hair, soft smile, and warm heart were the assets a good person deserved. I could and often dreamed about her, but it was all I could afford. No man has the right to ask a woman to share his nightmare. The next day at work was stressful, and I was grateful for that as it kept my mind occupied. At the end of the day, my personal assistant knocked and opened the door. John, 2 gentlemen from the FBI have come to see you. May I let them in? Helen asked. Of course, I was waiting for them, I replied, standing up. How can I help? I asked when they entered. First of all, I'm Mac Holmes, and this is Douglas Drysdale, Mac said. We're here to get some information on this situation. I told them how we met Adelia's current husband many years ago. I explained that, as far as I knew, there was no affair going on at the time, but due to their current relationship and the change in my daughter's last names, many questions arose. I think the only way to find out the truth is for us all to take DNA tests. I thought that Amanda, my eldest, was born before her mother was hired at Bank of America, but now I have to wonder if my wife Adelia knew him before that period. I said that Judge Donald McDonald put the divorce proceedings on hold after he filed child abduction charges because she ignored his court order by failing to appear. You will need to find out if she filed for divorce in New York and if she is legally married to him. So you're saying the judge never granted the divorce? Asked Douglas. That's right. The court records will show that the divorce was not granted due to her failure to appear in court to confirm that the documents presented to the court were approved by both, I said. Judge Donald is a man who cannot be confused or influenced by the stupidity of others. He acts this way in all his affairs because he was once deceived by a dishonest lawyer. Have you given your wife permission to leave the state with your children? Asked Mac. No, we learned from her lawyer that day that she had moved to another state. The judge asked me to try to contact them on a cell phone. When I returned, I told him that their numbers had been disconnected and that I had been unfriended by them on Facebook. So she moved out of state before the divorce was finalized and got married less than a week later, Douglas said. It clearly shows that everything she did was intentional. It was not an accident, Mac said. This contradicts what she said in the interview in New York this morning. When was the last time you had contact with your wife? Asked Douglas. It was 2 weekends before our last court date when Adelia and our daughters took the last of our belongings from our home. Child Services spoke with them both, and our children decided that the best thing to do at this time was to live with their mother, he explained. Since then, I have not received any legal notices or public notices in our local newspaper. I think it is safe to assume that I have not been divorced. This means his signature must have been forged on their adoption papers, Max said. We can charge them with trying to cover up a federal crime. I asked what kind of adoption documents we were talking about, but received no answer. Mr. Masters, could you please provide us with your sample signature? Helen, type me a letter on our letterhead with the text at the request of Mr. Pemo, Mac Holmes, and Douglas Drysdale of the FBI. This letter confirms my consent to provide a sample of my signature. I need you to witness this, then make a copy for our records before I give the original to them, I said, knowing she was listening to every word. Are you still living at 807654 Yale Road East? Asked Mac. No, I had to get a court order to sell it, I said. The police were tired of rumors that there was a sexual predator living in the area. They helped me get a court order from Judge McDonald to sell the house right after I was attacked and hospitalized for the second time. The judge froze all our assets the day she didn't show up. To court, I now live outside the city in a house that I built on Ryder Lake. It is a very secluded place with 5 acres of land that I own. Carried an electric fence for their protection because many people still believe the lies spread by others. After they left, I told Helen what was happening. She was shocked to learn that her older, distant cousin had been found. I saw hope growing in her eyes along with questions. There were still too many unknowns. As a result, I still had no answers. Helen, when I leave tonight, my cell phone will be off. If you are bothered about my situation, use your best judgment. In case of an emergency, call me on my home phone, I said. Helen hated her cousin Adelia for destroying the reputation of a good man and his personal relationships. John lost a lot of family and friends because of the rumors she created. She didn't believe that such harm could have been caused by someone if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes. She often wondered how much more she had to endure for the truth to prevail. It was difficult for her to sit and wait for everything to be decided. Human nature, from what she observed, proved to her that lies are always accepted as truth. Most believed that if it weren't for his company, John would have given up long ago. He threw himself into his work and as a result tripled the customer base. Finally, 2 years ago, he began to emerge from his protective cocoon. That's when her fresh supply of freshly caught trout seemed to stop. What surprised her most was that during all this time she had never heard the name of his wife or children since they left until today. During this period, she watched helplessly as he faded away. Now he was just a shadow of his former self. Helen was 14 years old when she first met 19-year-old John Masters at the family's pre-Christmas party. Adelia just announced her engagement. She was the center of attention. Helen immediately realized that their relationship would not last long. He was a financial consultant good at making money. She was a social climber in need of attention, prestige, and fame. He always put the interests of his family first. She always needed to be first, and as long as she felt like she was getting it, their relationship would continue. She told Adelia's mother that if they had children, they would divorce as soon as they reached adolescence. She turned out to be right. Her own marriage did not last long because her husband died serving in the army before she had the opportunity to become a mother. As a result, when she needed advice, she turned to John. It was John who helped her get through difficult times. He was there when she buried her husband and supported her during the mourning period. He became not only her boss, but also her best friend. She had watched him go through his own hell for the past 5 years, and it had made her realize that he was the one she wanted to grow old with. John's biggest problem was that no matter what he did, he was haunted by his past every day. As a result, he was stuck in a reality that few could see. The fact that Adelia and her children had disappeared caused a wave of rumors to spread like wildfire. Many now believed that John had killed them to protect his image. It was believed that the reason he had so many guards was because their bodies were buried on his property. For the first time in a long time, I went to Ruby Tuesdays for dinner, ordered unlimited access to the salad bar and a portion of catfish. I had just returned to my table after my first helping of salad when Adelia's father appeared. Without invitation, he pulled out a chair and sat down. "I heard from Adelia this morning," said Roger. I didn't say anything and continued eating. I had nothing to say to this man. The last time he spoke to me in public, he threatened to find a way to kill me. Public scenes like this only made my problems worse, causing more rumors. "Amanda and Miranda are doing well," Roger Carmichael said quietly. "My daughter wants to find a way to resolve these unresolved issues from the past. Adelia finally admitted to me that you never did any of the things she accused you of. She used this false accusation to explain her need to disappear from the city in this way. I want to find a way to apologize to you. I also know that she talked to several relatives today. Tell everyone she spoke to that. I will trust their sincerity when they have a signed, notarized statement stating what she said and why," I said. "When they do and come to my office to give it to me, I will believe them. Until then, even this conversation is nonsense. Until that happens, you are all dead in my eyes." "Damn, this is cruel, John," said Roger. "But I understand where you're coming from and why." "Do you really understand? I'm just treating you the way you've been treating me for the past 5 years. Think about this fact for a while. Now leave me alone and let me eat in silence," I said coldly. "Remember, thanks to rumors spread by extended family members, many in this town believe that I should be dead because of something I never did." I watched Roger leave. Did he really think that a 2-minute conversation would solve his daughter's problems? Did he think he could sit down and in 2 minutes erase 5 years of hatred, pain, and suffering that they had promoted? Did they all think it would be so easy? Did I think they were so stupid that they would try to act like nothing happened? A few minutes later, the waitress who was serving me came and sat down. "Mr. Masters, I was at school with your daughters. Based on what I just overheard, neither of them knew what was going on. On the Friday before they disappeared, we were looking forward to meeting at school the following Monday. I saw the man who just left working with other members of your wife's family, helping pack their things after they left," the waitress said. "After hearing what I just heard, I thought you needed to know." "Thanks for your honesty. That's refreshing." "I didn't even know that," I replied. "It doesn't surprise me that I've been lied to about what really happened all these years. I usually keep to myself because I'm tired of hearing the whispers and lies they spread about me." With these words, she returned to work. When I paid with my card, I left her a tip that was probably the best of the night. I had a great weekend on the lake fishing in a canoe. Every day I kept my limit, but let the others go. One of my favorite dishes lately is fresh rainbow trout cooked with flour and butter. Both evenings I ate 2 fish with eggs and toast. Early Monday morning I was at work, making my first coffee of the day and reading USA Today. I was a little disappointed that nothing was communicated, but realized that I was hoping for too much, too quickly. Helen arrived half an hour early. For this to happen, the earth must have moved in a new direction. She was excited about something because she was in an unusually good mood. After pouring herself some coffee, she joined me. Looking back, I spent the first few years buying houses, renovating them, and selling them for a higher price. She took courses and started working as a bank teller. I learned financial business from scratch. One of the former owners noticed my natural abilities and became my mentor. When the partners decided to retire, Masters Consulting was founded. They worked part-time for me and helped the company grow by leaps and bounds. When Miranda was born, I had my entire future path planned out. "I heard what you said to Roger on Friday," Helen said. "Damn, everyone heard. My phone rang all weekend. I told everyone, do you really blame him? After everything his family did to him, you all turned him into the walking dead in this city. I have one question for you, boss. Why do you need notarized statements?" I smiled and said, "Public libel." "Oh, damn," Helen said. "You're going to sue for everything she has." "Wouldn't you?" I asked. "Yes, because it is the only way to clear your name and restore your reputation. Better yet, by obtaining a court order to freeze their funds until my defamation suit is resolved, I am limiting them." This forces them to rely on the public defender. I said, "Would you like to go to federal court with a free lawyer?" "Well, boss, this is going to be an interesting week. If all those who called me keep their promises, we will have about 20. Helen said. "Most of the family are generally honest people. The problem, as I've been pointing out all weekend, is that they mistook lies for truth. I told them when they went to church on Sunday to think about it. The question is, will their own guilt motivate them to do what they know is right?" As she walked towards her desk, she turned around and said with an inviting smile, "Boss, remember, some of us single girls really like to spend our mornings fishing." For the first time in many years, I laughed. When I left at the end of the day, I told Helen, "Thank you for making me smile." Helen has always been and will always be my rock. I firmly believe that if it were not for her, I would not have survived this nightmare of the last 5 years. By Thursday afternoon, we had 24 signed and certified statements, all basically saying the same thing. My wife, Adelia, told everyone that she had to leave town because I humiliated and beat her for years, and that she finally found the strength to leave. Adelia claimed that she filed for divorce on these grounds. If any of them had checked the court documents, they would have seen for themselves that she was lying. Some helped her secretly leave the city with her 2 daughters and promised to remain silent. All admitted that Adelia called them last week in an attempt to resolve past problems. At the same time, she admitted that everything she said about me was a lie. In my opinion, Adelia was afraid of losing the new life she had built for herself. She had no remorse or guilt for what she did. She would have continued to live as if nothing had happened if I had not seen her picture in the newspaper. I knew that because my daughters didn't try to contact me, they believed everything she told them. The best I could hope for, given the facts that had come to light, was the satisfaction of knowing that perhaps justice would be done for me. I came to the conclusion that for my daughters, as for most of the family, I had been cut out of their lives. With a name, Helen was able to find her current legal address, her place of work, and the address of that work, as well as their current status. She said your appointment with a civil lawyer is scheduled for 2. Make sure that Adelia is notified before she is charged. Also remember that you would like to obtain a court order to freeze their assets. Damn it, I thought, Helen hasn't missed a thing. God have mercy, Adelia, if you ever see her in person, because you won't spare her. I returned to the office at 5:30 with a chilled bottle of champagne and 2 long-stemmed glasses. The lawyer Helen chose took on the case. I gave her all the old court records, the judge's transcripts, the affidavits, all signed, along with a copy of the warrant for her arrest. I also gave her a copy of the article that described my wife's new life. I made sure she knew everything about the 3 of us, and when I officially met him. When the lawyer found out about Bank of America's compliance, she said we should sue them too for intentionally aiding in an attempt to destroy a person's life. I said that if one claim covers the other, I agree. She smiled and said, "Okay, everything is included." I smiled, knowing that Americans, as a rule, sue for any reason. Helen and I shared a bottle of champagne. The 750 ml bottle gave us 2 glasses each. We were just sitting and talking when the phone rang. Helen answered and, closing the phone, said, "This is the judge." I turned on the speakerphone. "Hi, Donald. How are you today?" I said. "Everything is fine, considering the circumstances. John, I called to let you know that the FBI is moving toward convening a grand jury against Adelia Lynn Peterson and Ronald Emerson Peterson for next Wednesday. They are also seeking a protective order for Miranda Peterson and a warrant to compel DNA tests on all 5 of you," Judge Donald said. "Your eldest daughter is now an adult, and they have no power over her." "Thank you for the information. It is very valuable," I said. "Now about my divorce. I will provide it on favorable terms as soon as she is in my court, even if I have to do it via video link," Donald replied. "I am going to hold her accountable for her behavior to me in a very serious manner." Helen said after he hung up, "The judge is going to punish her seriously, but can he put her in jail? I think the kidnapping charge and any charges related to it will be under the jurisdiction of the FBI, but he may decide on the contempt charge for failure to appear, I said. I really don't know what the law allows him to do in this case. I think you'll have to wait again, Helen said sadly. Yes, I've been waiting for more than 5 years. A few weeks won't change anything. This will also give the lawyer I hired a few more days to interact with the court and notify her. If someone knew something, they didn't say anything. The next week flew by very quickly. On Thursday morning, my lawyer called to inform me that the documents were served on them at work on Wednesday. She mentioned that she successfully got all assets in Adelia's name frozen. That afternoon, FBI agent Doug Drysdale called me and asked me to stop by St. Francis Hospital to give blood for a DNA test before 6 o'clock. The sample will be sent to them for analysis. I gladly did it. I was at the lake fishing for breakfast on Saturday morning when my cell phone rang. I looked at the caller. It was Helen. You should go to the office and look at today's USA Today, she said. It shows how Adelia, Ronald, and Miranda were detained by FBI agents last night during another social event. I replied, I'm on the lake, heading towards the shore. As soon as I change, I'll go to the office and check. The curiosity was unbearable. I had to find out what the FBI was charging. It took me about an hour to get to the office. Helen was right, but what really caught my attention was what the journalist wrote. Child abduction is a criminal matter. That's just one of the charges Adelia and Ronald Peterson face for their behavior after she left Missouri with her children without consulting with her husband, from whom she was divorcing. Court records show she filed for divorce because she no longer loved him. A judge issued a warrant for her arrest for child abduction after her divorce proceedings were put on hold due to her failure to appear in court. It was our article about the couple 3 weeks ago that led to her arrest. Apparently, Adelia used the surname Masters when she married Ronald Peterson in a civil ceremony in New York just a week after leaving Missouri. We've learned that the paperwork filed for Ronald Peterson's legal adoption of Amanda and Miranda Masters was falsified. Mr. John Masters' signature was forged. The FBI now believes this was done by the couple to hide Masters' daughters in plain sight. It seems the couple worked together at Bank of America years ago when they were starting their careers. Mr. John Masters tried to force Bank of America to reveal his wife's whereabouts, but they obtained an appellate court order allowing them to bypass the requirement. Now it appears that Ronald Peterson, as a senior vice president at Bank of America, used his influence and power to prevent his wife's first husband from finding his legal wife and children. We have learned that Mr. John Masters has filed a civil libel suit against Adelia Peterson because she told more than 20 of her family and friends that she left her first husband because he beat and humiliated her. 5 years later, local police say they are still receiving reports accusing him of this. They claim that this is not true and that Mr. Masters was forced by public opinion to become a recluse. I asked if things were really that bad for John Masters. The police officer responded, "We still have 2 open attempted murder cases where he was the victim. Many people here believe that he killed 3 people and got away with it." He also filed a lawsuit against Bank of America and its senior vice president, Ronald Peterson, for marriage interference. Let's look at this from the victim's point of view for a moment. Don't you think he deserves justice? I think so, but what does he get? Nothing, because our society does not take this into account when dealing with criminals. They can express their opinion, but it is not published in the media because it does not sell newspapers. Often the victim pays the price for years. Criminal gets free housing, and I'm going. The article was amazing. All the facts were stated in it. I had just poured myself another cup of coffee when the phone rang. I responded by saying, "This is Masters Consulting. How can I help?" It turned out that it was from the Southeast Missourian newspaper. I confirmed that what was written about the entire situation was true. The reporter asked out of curiosity how these last 5 years have been for me. I told him about 2 still open cases of attack on me by unknown persons. Police were investigating both cases as attempted murder. I explained how far the rumors went. Then I asked him, "How do you feel about what I went through?" He replied, I would call it a living hell. It was hard for me to believe that the nightmare was ending. My name is cleared to some extent. I knew that 5 years had forever destroyed any relationship with my daughters, just like rumors destroyed my relationships with my parents and siblings. When it was all over, I decided to sell the business and leave the area forever if the only person I trusted would agree to leave with me. Before leaving the office, I cut out the article and photos. I then scanned them and printed copies. I placed them in a legal envelope for my civil lawyer to use in my case. Amanda Peterson was shocked when the FBI detained her mother and stepfather after their arrest. Agents then took her little sister into another vehicle. She was grateful that one of the agents took her aside and told her as much as he could. Her real parents were not divorced. He never agreed to change her last name or give up custody as her sister, and she were misled. The FBI announced that all documents with his signatures were proven to be forgeries. Her mother is accused of 2 counts of child abduction. Her stepfather is charged with kidnapping, aiding and abetting a federal crime. They are both charged with numerous other charges. Miranda will be held in protective custody until DNA tests prove who her father is, as her mother still claims she is her real husband. Amanda went home to pack her things. Now she sat in the lounge at the St. Louis airport, waiting for a connecting flight to the Cape. That's when she noticed the headline on the USA Today newspaper left on the empty seat. Picking it up, she read the entire article. By the time she finished, she was crying. During the hour-long flight to the Cape, Amanda was still trying to understand why her mother did what she did to her father. Nothing made sense to her. Of course, her mother confided in her about Ronald and their online relationship, but she never expected it to go this far until her mother asked her father for a divorce. She was sitting on the steps leading to the bedrooms in their old house when she heard her mother tell him that she no longer loved him and wanted a divorce. Her father was depressed at the time. Her mother believed that it did not matter, because he was just a man, and there were many like him. Now that she knew what the newspaper had written about her mother's previous relationship with Ronald, she had even more questions. As she watched the plane begin to descend, she wondered if the airport car rental office still had a phone. It was 11 in the morning. Amanda Peterson parked at their old house, waiting for the sheriff's car to leave. She had been there for over 2 hours already. Suddenly, it was blocked by 2 unmarked cars. The officer with the gun identified himself and asked her to step out of the car with her hands up. She obeyed. "Who are you and why are you watching this place?" asked the tall officer. "My name is Amanda Peterson. I was waiting for the sheriff's department to leave so I could talk to my father." "And what is your father's name?" asked the officer. "John Masters," Amanda replied. "Oh shit," said the officer in complete shock. "Tom, go tell Joanne and Jody to put the coffee on. This isn't what we thought. All 5 of us need to have a long talk. Miss Peterson, I'm Detective Joel Smithers. I know your father well. What brings you here after all this time?" "Part of what happened last night and the article in today's USA Today. I have a copy in the car. Should I take it?" "Please take it. It will help you understand what you know," Joel said. After introductions and coffee, Detective Joel Smithers read the entire article aloud. Everyone was amazed except him. "You believed my father, didn't you, Detective?" asked Amanda. "I was one of the few, but yes. Since the rumors started spreading from your mother and her family about your father, it was already too late. He was persecuted. This house was vandalized so often that he had no choice except to sell him. I think that the second time he was hospitalized after the attack almost finished him off completely. We were happy that we got to him before he died. Here people wanted to do with him what they wanted, believed he did. Many believed that you were all dead and that it was his doing. Your father, for many people here, Jody bought this house for a fairly small price, but it took until he started bringing home the sheriff's car, so that everything calms down." "Are you saying things were so bad for my father that he was kicked out?" asked Amanda. "Where does he live now?" "Yes, many of us in the South still have our own views on what justice is. Your father has 5 acres on Ryder Lake, but it's all completely fenced in with an electric fence and closed to an electronic lock. In the 2 years that he has lived there, except for work, no one has seen him in the city. How can I contact him? Amanda thought out loud. I think I know how, said Tom. I'll ask dispatch to see if his business has an emergency contact. Be back in a minute. A few minutes later, Tom returned with the address written on a piece of paper. Miss Peterson, you know Helen Bird? Tom asked. She's my mother's cousin, as far as I know. Why? Asked Amanda. According to our emergency records, she is the only one who can contact him at any time, Tom said. I talked to her, and she agreed to talk to you without making any promises. Official fact about Miss Bird, which I just learned. She is tough, cold, and protective of her boss, like a mother eagle of her chicks. If she doesn't believe you, she will do everything in her power to make sure you never get close to him. She's already on her way to his business. She said she'll be waiting for you there. He gave her the address. Amanda thanked them for their help before heading off. What woman would hate a man enough to do what Adelia did to John? Asked Jody. The one who blames him for all the problems in her life, answered Joanne. As the car approached hers, Helen Beard turned on the voice recording app on her phone and opened the door to allow Amanda into the building. The first question I want answered, Amanda, is what was happening at the time of your disappearance, and what did you know and find out later? Helen asked. Miranda and I were woken up by my mother at 4 in the morning on Saturday. She dragged me out of bed, half asleep. We were told to get dressed and go out. We got out and saw that the car was already loaded with our things. She said that she had a week's vacation and we were going to New York as a surprise, Amanda said. That was the first time we heard about it. So you said you didn't know what was really going on, Helen said. According to what some family members say, they knew about Ronald and your mother's online relationship, but they thought it was just friendship. Listen, I saw my mom texting Ronald, but I didn't know they worked together when we were younger. She told me she met him at a regional conference and they became friends, Amanda replied. We were driving for half an hour when I realized we didn't have phones. Then I asked my mom. Her answer was that the court awarded her sole custody of us, and we were moving to New York because she was promoted and transferred on short notice. Now I know it was part of a lie, but then I had no reason not to believe it. Helen Beard knew that part of this was true, based on what others were now saying, who were finally beginning to admit that Adelia's children did not know her plans. I also asked about our laptops. Mom said the phones had been turned off due to the move, and she had to pay the rest of the debt. As for the laptops, the movers had to pack them and ship them when they moved the furniture. We didn't know what they were. We'll never arrive, Amanda said. We drove over 20 hours in 2 days. What happened when you got to the outskirts of New York? Mom told Miranda to open her bag and get a new phone. It had a New York number. We didn't know she had it until then. Then she asked her sister to open Google Maps. He gave us a bunch of directions. We didn't know that we were directed to Ronald Peterson's house. We found out 2 hours later. He gave her a huge promotion and organized everything so they could be together. The family here was tasked with getting rid of everything except family photos, which were later sent to us. While we were unloading the car, Miranda and I found the completed adoption papers, Amanda explained. It was Ronald who explained that our parents, and he agreed on this because Mom and he were going to get married, Amanda explained. Mom told us later that night that we should give Ronald and her a chance because he is our biological father. We were gradually led to believe that when Father found out about Ronald's real relationship with us, he decided there was nothing else for him except to erase us from your life. Amanda, I believe you because I've already heard about 50% of what you said from my family over the past few days. The only thing we knew for sure was that the school district provided Adelia with printed copies of your school records so you could register at the new school when you find a place to live. Now that Adelia has been found, the truth is out. Just so you know, I recorded our conversation. As soon as I give it to the FBI and your father, we will go to Ruby Tuesdays for an early dinner, Helen said. While I'm at it, look at these copies of statements made with the notary. Think about it. If she lied to you about your father, John Masters, could she also lie about Ronald Peterson? Helen went into the other room and watched Amanda for a few minutes before relaying their conversation. Amanda learned how much her family conspired with her mother against John. She forwarded the conversation to John first, then to a civil lawyer because Amanda's honest statement was so damaging. Then she sent him to the FBI. All this time she watched Amanda, and she made no attempts to contact anyone. Before Helen returned, she received a message from John. "I'll be waiting for your arrival. Thank you." She wrote back. I left her alone for half an hour to read some statements we received from the family. She made no attempt to contact anyone. I will get back to her with this. Helen returned to Amanda. Helen, do you have any idea why my mother told the family that my father beat and abused her for years? Asked Amanda. No one in the family ever approved of your father. Your mother knew this. I think she used it to explain her need to disappear and move so suddenly. Adelia also knew that your father would be looking for you, and he actually did. He even tried to sue Bank of America to tell them where she was, and won, but then lost in the appellate court, Helen explained. We didn't know about your mother's marriage and last name change until a few weeks ago when her photograph appeared in the newspaper. When your father was served with a summons, Adelia contacted the family in a failed attempt to get rid of her growing problems, Helen explained. For 5+ years, your father was a persecuted man because of your mother's actions. I thought we were going to lose him twice. How is he now? Amanda asked seriously. He became withdrawn and lost a lot of weight. The stress he felt all this time turned his hair almost completely gray. His Facebook page was flooded with hate and threats to the point that he had to close his account. This forced him to remove his name from the corporate Facebook page because they were attacking him too. They were trying to destroy his business and life. He has learned not to trust anyone and only trusts a few people. He used to be so outgoing. Now he is quiet and reserved. He has no choice. He is free, but not because there are those who still want to bring their version of justice, Helen explained. He travels out of town to do any personal shopping for the house. He is gradually getting better. Even his own family turned their backs on him. Divorce is usually hard, but what happened to him was much worse. People here still believe that he killed the three of you and got away with it. Daddy has a girlfriend? Asked Amanda. With the reputation your mother gave him, would you date him? Helen asked. For more than 5 years, he defended himself against lies that he could not refute. Amanda said nothing for a few minutes and then said, every time he tried to defend himself, he only made the situation worse because people already had an opinion. He was forced to go alone. The disappearance made the mother's version believable. Adelia and Ronald planned everything well. The only one who really got hurt was your father. It got to the point where I was afraid he would take his life, Helen said as tears began to flow. Let's go eat. At that moment, Amanda realized the price Helen had paid. She stood next to her father all these 5 years. How much did she lose to do this? As they headed towards Helen's car, Amanda stopped. Thank you, Helen. For what? Helen asked. For having the courage to stand by and love my father, Amanda replied. Helen couldn't hold back her tears. Amanda's words made her burst into tears. Amanda consoled her. I sat in my car at Ruby Tuesdays waiting for them to arrive, trying to figure out what to say to my oldest daughter, who I haven't seen in over 5 years. My emotions were raging. I replayed Helen and Amanda's conversation several times. I believed what I heard, but not completely. I saw them approach. They got out of the car and headed to the front door. My hands were shaking so much that I could barely light a cigarette. I was a bundle of nerves. Amanda has blossomed into a wonderful woman. I saw many of my mother's features in her. This upset me because they disowned me shortly after my wife and daughters disappeared. Having finished smoking, I turned off the car and prepared for one of the shortest, but the longest hikes in my life. The waitress who served me a couple of weeks ago was the hostess on duty. She immediately said, Amanda is here. I talked to her. I sat her and her friend in the far corner. Are you here to meet? When I said yes, she said she would sit me down so that Amanda would see me as soon as I arrived. She led me back. Helen saw me immediately and smiled. I walked over and sat next to her, taking her hand for support. For the first time in 5 years, I looked straight into my daughter's bright blue eyes. Without saying a word, we both saw our tears begin to flow. Sometimes you just don't know what to say. This was one of those moments. I asked the hostess to bring us a large carafe of their house wine. When the wine was brought, the waitress silently poured it into glasses and left us alone. Amanda was shocked by how much her father had changed. He must have lost about 40 pounds. Even his face looked longer, thinner, and older. His gray hair may have added to his age. Many women would pay a lot of money to have that look at his age. She decided that one of them should say something, so she stood up. I responded in kind. We met at the edge of the table in a big hug. She screamed loudly, "Dad." I answered, "Alma," my old nickname for her. We broke the ice. After our emotions calmed down, we ordered our food. Amanda was surprised at how my preferences had changed. I have always been a meat eater and loved potatoes, so my plate was always filled with starch. Now I ordered a portion of catfish with unlimited access to the salad bar. I filled my plate with salad 3 times. As Helen filled hers, it gave Amanda a chance to talk to me alone. "Helen loves you, Dad." "Probably more than I do," Amanda said. She interrogated me like an old army sergeant before she decided I was being honest. She wasn't going to give me a chance to hurt you again. I have to admit, I had a chance to figure it out on my own, but I didn't. I don't think that someday I will forgive myself for this. Amanda, I didn't have a life to offer to anyone for those 5 years. At any moment, if the body of one of you had been found, I would most likely end up in prison. Most here thought that I killed the 3 of you and escaped punishment, I said. I knew this, so I changed my will 3 years ago, leaving everything to Helen. After the second attack and hospitalization, I thought the time had come. She was the one who brought me back from this brink. Helen returned to find Amanda in tears. "What did you tell her that it started again?" "Nothing special, just that 3 years ago, when I was in the hospital and decided it was time to leave, I changed my will, leaving everything to you. I said it was your love that brought me back from the brink." I ended up with 2 women crying. After lunch, we went and returned the rental car. The women then followed me to my home on Ryder Lake. They loved my secluded home overlooking the lake, with 4 bedrooms upstairs. Great room, living room, kitchen, laundry room with open floor plan and master bedroom on the main floor, with a covered passage from the garage to the house. I offered to carry Amanda's luggage upstairs, but she refused. I thought she felt we needed some alone time. "Why didn't you tell me how you felt before?" Helen asked. "I couldn't. I was trapped in my past," I replied. "I didn't know whether the body would show up or not. Not knowing is worse than knowing. Adelia and Ronald knew this and used it to their advantage. Now that I'm free from the box they put me in, I can offer you a future, and I couldn't before because I didn't have one." Helen took my hand with a smile on her face. "I think I'll put my house on the market because there's no way I'm letting you sell this one. No matter how old you are, you still feel a little guilty when your daughter catches you kissing another woman. I know because that's exactly what she did." For the next hour we sat and caught up with what I had missed in my daughter's life. I learned that she works in a business that isn't producing much and is studying online for her MBA. She wasn't dating seriously. "Why don't you come work for us?" I said. "We can afford it and we need fresh eyes. You can start in a junior position and work your way up." "After everything we've done to you, are you serious?" asked Amanda. "Yes, we're serious," Helen replied with the biggest smile I've ever seen. "We can start with an annual salary of $45,000. "Wow, I guess I'm going to have to find a place to live," Amanda said. "Take your time, we have plenty of space here," I said. "But I will expect you to perform household duties as before." Amanda responded, with tears in her eyes, "Dad, why?" "You have always been an important part of my life," I replied. "I'll fly out tomorrow morning to pack if I can find a flight. Depending on how long it takes, I'll be back Wednesday in my car," Amanda said. "Let's add your numbers to my contacts." We had just finished adding numbers when Amanda received a text from Miranda. Amanda showed it to me. Finally, my cell phone was returned. "The FBI is holding me until DNA results are available to confirm whether Ronald Peterson is my father or not. They showed me how experts proved that the adoption documents were forged. I can't make calls, but I can send and receive messages since it's a secure center." Amanda replied, "With my real dad. I'm flying to New York tomorrow to pack my things, moving back home and joining his firm. This is his number." Miranda replied, "Bring it my things too and my laptop. Let the rest remain." Amanda replied, "Try to get today's USA Today. You need to read the article about us. It explains a lot of things I didn't know. Call me as soon as you can so I can tell you more." Helen saw me walk out onto the patio and followed me. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Emotionally overwhelmed," I replied, hugging her. "How about I take Amanda with me and go to my place to get my things?" said Helen. "This will give you time to sort your thoughts out." I sent her the electronic gate lock program on her phone so she could open it and gave her the keys to the house, offering to make 4 copies. They left for about 2 hours. I spent most of this time in tears. I realized that the pain and resentment I had been carrying for so long was finally coming out. I was right. From the way I behaved, it was clear that the dam had broken. When they returned, I was smiling, just like them. I was out on the patio preparing the grill for some steaks I had defrosted. Already made a salad and baked potatoes. I watched them chat while carrying things. After 4 trips, they brought back a lot of things that were now lying on the bed in the master bedroom. Over a late dinner, I learned that Amanda was flying to New York at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. Helen and I will be moving her things tomorrow. I enjoyed seeing girls overeating. We were all drinking coffee when my cell phone rang. The only people who had this number, other than those present, were the FBI agents. I responded by saying, "Hello. Mr. Masters, this is Doug Drysdale. Just wanted to let you know that DNA tests have confirmed that you are Miranda's father. We received the results about 2 hours ago." We told her. She wants to go home. We've arranged for her to fly to the Cape for 7:30 Monday morning. "That's great. Helen and I will meet her there," I replied. "Great. We knew Amanda was headed to you last night. Let me know her sister saw a copy of that article online," Doug said. "You might be interested to know that when we told Ronald Peterson, he was shocked. It turned out that Adelia convinced him that Miranda was his daughter. That doesn't change anything. He's still looking at the long term. Just a quick question. When everything calms down, what are my daughter's legal names?" I asked. "Their legal names are Masters. We received the court order on this matter Friday morning. A copy of the federal court order will allow you to change their identification cards. It will arrive at your office on Monday." With this, he ended the conversation. I couldn't hold back. The tears flowed. I was excited and couldn't speak. Both Helen and Amanda became worried. Fortunately, I quickly regained my composure. "Miranda will arrive at the airport at 7:30 on Monday morning. DNA tests have confirmed that she is my daughter," I said. When they told Ronald Peterson, he was shocked. Adelia convinced him that she was his daughter. "I knew it," Helen said. "Has my cousin Adelia ever told anyone the truth?" "Amand, I have bad news. You have to change your last name back to Masters because the federal court ruled your adoption invalid." My daughter ran into my arms, crying. The last name Peterson never felt right. We saw Amanda off at the airport as she headed back to New York to pack her things. We then went to meet Helen's brothers and their wives at Jackson. They helped us move her furniture. Since I only furnished 2 of the 4 bedrooms, we had plenty of space to fit her things. The entire story was published in Sunday's edition of the Southeast Missourian. We met them at the Hickory House restaurant for breakfast. Everyone noticed that Helen's face was glowing with happiness. Her sisters-in-law noted that in 6 months I would gain weight with her cooking. The owner of the restaurant, an old friend, said, "Congratulations, John, this breakfast is at our expense." We did everything in one long day. I think Helen's sisters-in-law were jealous of her new home. We invited everyone to come with us to dinner, but they refused. But they suggested that they would definitely be at our first housewarming party when our whole family would be at home. On Monday morning, we were at the airport at 7:15 because sometimes the flight arrived earlier. Helen informed everyone who was needed that we would not be there today. The answer was, we realized it when we read the Sunday newspaper. I watched as Miranda walked down the small plane towards me, dressed in jeans and a top. I found it hard to believe how much she had changed. The last time I saw her, she was a teenager with pigtails. A stunning young lady was walking towards me. As soon as she saw me, she ran towards me. The sliding doors opened to allow her to run inside. She screamed, "Daddy," and literally jumped into my arms. We both gave free rein to our emotions. All this was captured by cameras. We didn't care. I heard Helen tell the station reporter KVOS 12. "This is John Masters and his youngest daughter, who half the town thought was dead. It turns out they were kidnapped over 5 years ago. The FBI has her mother and her lover in prison. This is the first time they've seen each other in 5 years." We separated and turned to the reporter. "I'm Miranda Masters. This is my father, John Masters. 5 years ago, we were kidnapped with the help of my mother's family. They spread dirty rumors about my father. It's not true. Our mother and her family may have done such things, but our father did not and would never do. Whoever is going to attack him in the future will deal with us. We are a family and will stand by each other. My mother told us when she divorced my father that he is just a man who gets his due. None of us deserved what she did. To me, he is not just my father, he is also the most honest person I have ever known." I introduced Miranda to Helen. Miranda hugged her and said, "Amanda and I had a long talk yesterday about everything we learned. It turned out that our mother lied and misled Ronald just as much as she did our father. In her desire to be the center of attention, she almost destroyed 5 lives. We know that you and Dad are going to get married. So, as far as Amanda and I are concerned, we want to forget about Helen, okay, Mom?" Helen burst into tears and said, "You couldn't have said it better, Miranda. I'll do it if you promise to be one of my bridesmaids." "Let's go get breakfast and then buy you some clothes at Macy's," I suggested. "Can I go to Denny's?" Miranda asked. If they were still open, yes, but the closest place for breakfast is Huddle House, I replied, "if that suits you." It was satisfying, and I was surprised at how much my youngest could eat. I thought it might be cheaper to feed her somewhere else. I still couldn't believe I had life again. My daughters have come back into my life in a way I never dreamed possible. I no longer slept in the house, it was a real home. While we were at Macy's, I deliberately got lost and walked away. There's something a little unmasculine about watching women discuss bra sizes, panty sizes, and personal items. When they noticed that I was missing, I was almost back. Helen asked where I had gone, and I said I was going to the toilet. I sat and watched Miranda try on things. For some reason, she wanted my approval. Hell, in my opinion, she would look good in anything. $300 later, we walked out with 2 bags. When we got home, Helen showed Miranda the now furnished 4 bedrooms upstairs. Helen was delighted when Miranda chose a room with furniture from her master bedroom. We sat on the patio enjoying the space before the heat got too much. The women drank iced tea, and I drank cold beer. I stood up and walked over to Helen. Taking the box with the ring out of my pocket, I dropped to one knee, catching her by surprise. "Since I haven't formally proposed," I said, opening the box containing the triple set of rings, "will you marry me as soon as my divorce is finalized?" Of course, she said yes. Miranda took it all off and sent it to Amanda with the text, "Yes, it fits." I found out her ring size from her brother. About half an hour later, Helen unexpectedly received a call. Miranda and I looked at her with concern as she suddenly began to cry. I didn't understand until she handed me her phone. As soon as the person on the other end said, "Congratulations, Daddy," I knew it was my eldest daughter. "Are you on your way already?" I asked. "I left at 4 yesterday, driving almost non-stop," Amanda explained. "At night, there is less traffic and police on the highway. My car easily goes over 100. Tell my sister that I brought her things." I said I would let you know and asked how long she had left to travel. She replied, "What time is it there?" I said about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She said, "Need some help finding my way. I just took the exit to the Cape." I said I would send her a text with instructions. I did it. I didn't know whether to be proud or angry, since it turned out that she had been driving for 24 hours without stopping. The girls heard the car approaching and waited for it at the door before it got out. Amanda looked tired, but okay. Suddenly, it dawned on me. I saw my 3 girls together. The first thing Amanda did was look at Helen's ring. At that moment, the bell rang. I ran to answer. "John, we're in a jam today," Chris said. "Some of the clients we lost because of the rumors are coming back, and we have a lot of new ones wanting to make appointments, many of them from out of state. If this continues, we'll have to hire more staff." "We're working on it. My daughter Amanda will start working as a junior next week," I said. "She's green, but she's studying for an MBA. "Can I have her on my team?" asked Chris. "The work will be long, but she will get the hang of it quickly." I said yes. Chris Aker was energetic and ambitious. I hired him right out of college with honors. Like all of us, he learned through hardship and made up for his mistakes with time. He quickly realized that the business theories taught in school had no practical application in real life. He knew it and was not ashamed to admit it. Everyone who worked under him learned the same way. His approach was, if you see someone making a mistake, stop him and explain why his approach is wrong. The only wrong question in his eyes was the one you didn't ask. "Chris, Helen, and I are taking the weekend off. We still have a lot of stuff to sort out," I said. "With our engagement and the return of our daughters, we have legal issues to resolve. Plus, we need to register Miranda in school." "Engagement? Wow. By the way, we have a courier letter from the FBI. Can you pick it up at 5? Said Chris. "Damn, thanks for the reminder. I completely forgot," I said before saying goodbye. At 4:30, we all headed into town. We decided to celebrate our first formal family dinner at Red Lobster, my daughter's restaurant of choice. I stopped in front of the office and asked Amanda if she wanted to see her future job site. She said yes, and we all went inside. As we entered, the secretary stood up and led us into the largest conference room. Inside was a large cake and a huge banner that said, "Congratulations." Amanda met her new boss. Everyone welcomed my new family. It was noticeable that my daughters were already calling Helen Mom. We finally got to the restaurant around 6:30. It was during an all-you-can-eat promotion, so my daughters stopped counting after 140 shrimp and couldn't believe that I was now eating raw lemons like most people eat oranges. My daughters and I read the judgment together. The first thing the judge noted was that the document was found on a website that did not require a lawyer to create it. The second thing experts noted was that John Allen Masters' signature had been circled in order to copy it. This caused significant disruption in the natural flow of the ink when inking. Comparing each of his signatures on the document, the breaks were not consistent across each signature to establish a pattern developing over time. Third, I have never used my full middle name in my signature. The fourth obvious clue was that the date of the signature, according to witnesses, was after they left Missouri. The second page was the court's decision that Amanda and Miranda Peterson were never their legal names. Therefore, in the eyes of the court, they have always been Amanda Masters and Miranda Masters, and all their documents must be changed to reflect this. We spent a week solving legal problems. First it was Social Security, then the state advocate's office to restore their birth certificates with their original names. We then went to the DMV to get new driver's licenses with their original names on them. It was personally rewarding to sit across from the same school principal who told me where to go 5 years ago to enroll Miranda in 11th grade. The last thing I did on Thursday was buy them new cell phones. On Friday, I asked Amanda and Miranda to follow Helen and me to the Groves Ford dealership in Jackson. Helen gave me permission to trade her car along with Amanda's car. The girls chose new 2019 Ford Escape cars for lease with the option to buy through my company. When I got home, I wrote Amanda a check for the amount we were given for her old car as a down payment. My divorce lawyer called for the first time in 5 years. My daughters and I were scheduled to attend a hearing scheduled for 1 p.m. on Monday. I asked Helen if she wanted to come with us. She replied, "Hell yes." We all sat in front of Judge Donald McDonald, watching as Adelia Lynn Peterson took her place on the big screen in front of us. Without her luxury, she looked unimportant. The orange color clearly didn't suit her. The judge asked her lawyer if he had anything to say about the contempt charge. He said his client said she didn't realize she had to be in court that day. The judge asked her lawyer, "Did you remind her of this many times when you negotiated the settlement?" He answered, "Yes." "Are you so incompetent in your field as to believe that the accused can tell the truth?" The lawyer replied, "No." "How does your client wish to respond?" "No objection, Your Honor. I sentence her by the 5 years that will be repulsed after any federal term," the judge said coldly. "Your Honor," said her lawyer, "isn't that too strict?" Judge McDonald replied, "No, in my eyes, but she has a right to appeal." As for the divorce, it is granted in favor of Mr. Bush Masters. All assets remaining from their marriage, she loses the right to them from the day she left the state with their minor daughters, the judge said. Turning to my lawyer, he added, "Draw up a divorce decree and add a waiver of the mandatory period. I think your client has waited long enough." "Your Honor," said my lawyer, "my client has one more request that he would like you to grant." "What is this?" Donald asked, looking at me with a question in his eyes. "He has recently become engaged to Miss Helen Beard and would like you to perform a civil ceremony when they are married," my lawyer said. Helen and the girls almost jumped out of their seats. I had a big smile on my face. My lawyer and I thought it might happen like this. If this happened, he should have used the funds that I put on his check to pay for the lease of the cars and transfer ownership of the cars to Helen and the girls and return the rest to me by check. I will respect and congratulate both of them. It's long overdue, the judge said with a big smile. We all saw Adelia's face on the screen. Her face was white with shock. I think she believed she would get away with 30 days in jail for contempt of court, not that kind of time. It must have been especially painful for her to learn in court about my engagement to her younger cousin. The judge lowered his gavel and said, "The trial is over." As we stood up to leave, the judge came up to me and shook my hand. I introduced him to my future wife and daughters with due respect. He told them, "I'm not in the dock now, so just dawn." Before we left, he said, "John, we should go fishing before it gets too hot." No one, I think, has ever seen 3 more excited girls than the ones in my life. They all started talking at the same time. Accustomed to silence, I began to dream of earplugs. This was when I noticed a couple quietly leaving the court. It was like I was hit. These were the last people I expected to see. It was my mom and dad. As my father said when he ended our relationship and disowned me, "Forgiveness is easy, forgetting is not." I learned how true that is. Nothing makes girls happier than being invited to plan a wedding. This was what filled our home when we returned to normal life. Helen has put her house up for sale. Amanda fits perfectly into my team. She was noted to have a sharp and insightful mind. Miranda found several old friends and reconnected in the first week. Masters Consulting was overwhelmed with work when we signed 2 new corporate contracts that required a complete restructuring to survive and a significant injection of capital. Amanda surprised us all by pointing out things we had completely overlooked that were costing our clients millions in potential sales. It took her 3 weeks to fix this part. The resulting increase in sales surprised everyone. Helen and I were lying in bed, just cuddling. She was getting used to the role of a mother, just as I was getting used to the role of a father. You know, honey, my biological clock is ticking. How long do you think we should wait before we try to have one or two of our own? Helen asked, looking at me with her dreamy eyes. I have to admit that I never thought about it, but I knew that after everything she went through with me, I had no right to refuse. Let me answer your question this way. As long as you don't appear pregnant in our wedding photos, I'll leave it up to you, I said. I don't think I need to explain why we didn't sleep much that night. We finally said our vows on Mother's Day. Amanda was a bridesmaid, Miranda and another niece were bridesmaids. Chris Aker was my best man, and my two nephews were best men. It was a small ceremony in our backyard with a lake in the background. Helen's brothers were preparing the yard. The judge married us under an arch of spring flowers. All the men wore jeans, cowboy hats, and matching boots. Of course, the women were in all their glory. Helen wore a traditional white wedding dress. Her bridesmaids were in yellow dresses. Her extended family hosted a fabulous barbecue dinner. That night, our terrace turned into a huge dance floor with live music. Life went on. A criminal trial began against Adelia and Ronald. Ronald filed for divorce. My civil attorney discussed the case with their attorneys and the Bank of America legal team. Our first Father's Day as a new family was approaching. I knew my wife and daughters were planning something, but I didn't know what. On Father's Day, Helen and I were on the lake in our canoe at dawn, fishing. The fish were biting well. It seemed that as soon as the fly touched the water, it was immediately grabbed. In less than an hour, we caught our full catch. Just before we started swimming back to shore, Helen gave me a card that she had hidden on her person. I opened it. It read, "Happy Father's Day, Daddy. We're pregnant, and it's a boy." I jumped up for joy and capsized the canoe. We lost everything: fish, fishing rods, and a box of bait. We returned to shore in the wet canoe. When the girls found out how I got the news, they thought it was funny. They had already been told Helen's good news. It took time for everything to work out. But it is not always the case. Everything changed for me when I saw the birth of my son. He came into the world screaming, weighing 7 pounds. My mother was shocked when I called and asked her to come to the maternity hospital as soon as possible. When she arrived, I hurried to take her to Helen's room, where she was keeping our son. "His name is Colleen Richard," I said. My mother couldn't help herself. It was her grandfather's name. As for my father and I, we still don't talk. He should come to me, but he hasn't come yet. But every day is a new day, and life goes on. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.